Alright everybody, here's a second video. I got all the pistons in. I got 7 of them in. I got 1 to go, so I figured maybe we'll show you guys how a piston goes in. So, this is the block. What you want to do is look down the hole and see the rod journal turning while you turn this thing. And best thing to do is get that right smack dead in the middle, so when the connecting rod's coming down, it will line right up on it. So you got that straightened on there. Next thing you do, best thing to do is just wipe it off, make sure there's nothing on it. Number one thing that ruins a brand new motor is any kind of dirt. You get one little speck of sand, grit, a filing piece that fell off the block, a casting. It just has to be minute. And once that gets embedded into the bearing and you fire this thing up, it just snowballs and just rips this thing apart. It's like putting it inside of a blender. And once one dart starts going, it goes through the oiling system. It just has a fucking heyday with it. So the best thing to do is clean, clean, clean. And the second best thing to do is don't have any distractions in the shop. Friends, girls, drinking. You got to pay attention to what's going on at all times. Now, again, all I got is a helmet cam here, so I can't hold the freaking camera because I don't have my helmet on, so it's not holding it. I don't have anything else to actually hold this camera, so I'm going to try and put you on a box here. That ain't working out too well. Alright, maybe that might work. Alright, so now here's the connecting rod. I don't know if you can actually physically see it, but here's the rod, the piston. First thing you want to do, again, make sure everything's clean. You take the air gun, give it a quick little zip, make sure that's perfect. Now in your king bearings, when you get them, there's actually an upper and a lower to the bearing, because the chamfer on the connecting rod right here always goes to the outside of the crank where they actually grind the crank and cut it. They can't get super close all the time, so they put a chamfer in there so you'll fit over the part that's already cut. So what these guys do, they actually offset the bearing a little bit, so you end up with a little bit of space in there. So it's not hanging over the edge. So it's actually inside the edge, so you don't have a problem. So when you put this bearing in, I think the guys are slipping on me here. Yeah, that's a little better. You want to tap this both sides. You want to make it even. Make sure it's flush. You don't want one side out. One side always has a tang on it. So now the bottom half. Always look at the bearing. Give it a little clean job. Make sure it's clean. Again, one little piece of junk will fuck you up. So this one here says L on it. The other one said U on it. So that would be upper. L is lower. Same thing here. Going on here. Now, a couple other things. This here is a standard on the mains, on the rods. When you put these two halves together and you mic them up, if you have a good machine shop, they'll mic this up, they'll mic the crank up, and they'll tell you it's tight or it's going to be loose. When you start off with standards and you end up being too tight, instead of polishing the crank so it gets smaller so you get more clearance, you can buy King bearings. Has a bearing, standard size, one with an X on it, which stands for extra clearance. It gives you 1/1000th extra clearance. And they also have one under, which will tighten it up 1/1000th. So in this case right here, the crank was actually a little tight. So I got one standard bearing and I have one X bearing to give me a little extra clearance. So it gives me like a 1/1000th clearance. So you mix match the bearings to get the clearance you want. I also have that in the 57 over here. I got mix match bearings in it also to get you the right clearance that you need. So again, you put this with the tang, put that in there, and then you just, again, you just want to make sure this is seated in there, and these are flush with the sides, because it's easy to get these things so they're not flush with the side, and it's pushing up. That's no good. And again, see, they make the bearing a little smaller on this side here, so you got the flange part, so when it goes against the crank, it doesn't bind up. If you put these in backwards, and this is on this side, you're going to spin this bearing like a champ in freaking a minute or minutes when it's on the dyno, or on the engine run stand. It only takes a split second to fuck something up. So, we got that done. We take a little bit of oil, slop it on there, just give it a little coat job. This here I'm not too worried about, because later on when I get this motor all together, and before I actually start it up, I have the starter on there, I got the drill on there, I'm priming the thing, I'm turning it over while I'm priming it. I prime this thing for about a half an hour straight, so I know this thing is oiled up, it's not going to be dry, and not going to have any problems. And then these rod bolts, again, these are the big 7/16 rod bolts, ARP assembly lube. You cover these threads right up here. Normal small block Chevrolet little 3/8 rod bolts, they're torqued down to 45 foot-pounds. These here are torqued down to 63 foot-pounds. These are a bitchin' rod bolt. So you put all that goop on there. I hope the camera is actually picking all this up, because I'm gonna buy another camera, so in one of them tripod things, you can put the stupid camera on, you can watch everything. So I already did it, but I'll do it again. This here is, you put a little bit of oil in here, bring it around, and they sell all different kinds of ring compressors. I got the plier style. I used to have the old style crank job. Took that, threw that fucker in the trash. That's a big waste of fucking time, so don't even bother buying one of those. Alright, next step here, you read the instructions. They tell you, put your one ring at like 10 o'clock, the other one at 1 o'clock. Just make sure your oiling rings down the bottom, those are split. You don't want those lined up. So you put one in the front, one in the side. Now the two top ones, I just take them. I put one at 12 o'clock, I put one at 6 o'clock. It really doesn't matter. When this fucking thing's spinning around up and down at 7,000 RPMs, these rings are spinning in the bore anyways. At one time or another, these things are going to line up for a few seconds and keep on going. So for the first time, you don't want the things lined up, so just split the things up. It really doesn't matter where the hell you put them. Now, everybody has their own little techniques and tricks, and you can't do that. Well, whatever works for you, use it. Everything's not science. It's not perfect. Unless if you're in a big engine shop and you're spending $40,000 on a motor, yeah, you might want to have everything exactly right. But here, this will work. Another thing you always want to remember on a small block Chevrolet, valve reliefs always go towards the top of the motor, towards the camshaft, never on towards the outside of the motor. So these are always upward. If these are upward, the other thing you got to look at when on a small block Chevrolet is your tang for your connecting rod is always towards the outside of the motor. So the valve reliefs are up, tang is out. So if you ever put your own pistons together and you get finally done with them and you're going to slide them in the hole, make sure the valve reliefs are top, tangs are towards the outside. If not, you got the connecting rod on backwards. And if you put it on backwards, again, you're going to get fucked. So let me put this in the board and I'll bring you over here. I might just turn this box here so you can see what's going on, I hope. Hopefully that's right in the right spot. Alright. You're going to see magic with this ring compressor here. Maybe you won't. Let me get you up a little higher here. Let's see, maybe that's it. Alright, this ring compressor is probably about the best style you're ever going to buy. It's sweet, it's easy, there's no bullshit. I got one for 355s, which is 4-inch 30, and then I got one for a 4-inch 400 motor board 30, which puts you at a 4-inch 155, I believe it is. So what you do is you take your hand inside the motor and just guide the connecting rod down so you're not smashing on top of the crank when you're pushing down on the piston. So what you want to do, you tap it in, and look, it's in already. See how that easy? That it? Bingo. So now what you want to do is you keep guiding this down on top of the crank until you get all the way down there. That's it. Nice big solid stop. Alright, let me show you the next critical step that 90% of people don't do. And again, this will pinch you right in your ass if you don't. You come down here, and I have a Torx screwdriver. It's got a nice flat head on it. When you're pushing this rod down on top of the crank, sometimes the bearing starts slipping out of the connecting rod. Sometimes when you're coming down, you might catch the side of this part here. It pushes the bearing around to the other side. So what you want to do is you want to come around here and just make sure that bearing is flat inside there. Because if it's not, if it's out of the tang is what stops the things from spinning. So if that tang is not in there, again, you're going to get screwed. So you got to watch that stuff. And again, you got to make sure everything is clean. If you do those couple of things, you're not going to have any problems. So now, let me put you back in the box here. Whoops. This is going to be a horrible video, but I'm sorry. So one more thing. This connecting rod, you're saying that bearing, you're saying, why has it got a fucking hole in it? Well, if you have like in a real expensive rod, they actually have a little dowel pin in there also, which will help stop the bearing from spinning in the connecting rod. That's when you get into like some really ridiculous horsepower ratings. So again, there's the tang right here. This tang has to be on towards the outside of the motor. You got to make sure that tang down the bottom is on the outside of the motor. Tang to tang. If you don't have tang to tang, you're going to have fucking bearings spin like you wouldn't believe. You won't even be able to get this thing turned over. As soon as it fires up, that bearing's going to be spinning. And you're going to be chewing the crank up, the rod up. You're going to have a big freaking mess in here. So, again, watch what you're doing. Take your time. Don't have a chick hanging around and you're thinking about something else other than this, because this is going to cost you probably about $4,000 if you tear something up. Probably could ruin the block at the same time if you spin a main bearing. It's not worth it. Just take your time. Do everything slow. So again, these are torqued to 63. Stock ones are torqued to 45. So here, what you want to do is just get a little quarter turn, go on the other side, quarter turn. You just want to lock one side all the way down to 63 right off the bat. It's going to be going up there crooked, so you want just a little at a time. And that's it. After everyone, when you put the mains in, you want to torque one of the mains. Let me get you over here. You want to torque one of the mains after you put the crank in. Say if you start from the middle, you tighten that main cap down. You want to torque it to spec. You want to check to make sure it spins. You want to go to the next one, torque the next one down, make sure it spins. If you go to this one over here and you tighten it down and it doesn't move, you got a problem. If you go ahead and torque all of them down all at once, then you don't know which one is the problem. So you do one at a time, make sure it turns. Once it turns, go to the next one, and that way you don't have any issues. Then the other thing you want to check afterwards, which I've been doing while I've been going down the road here, is your side clearances. See how they move back and forth? The idea behind these side clearances, one, when they're going up and down, they're going to move a little bit side to side. The other thing is the oil sprays out of here. When the oil is coming through the crank, it sprays out. You want these a little loose. These here, I think the back set was 23. These were 20. The way this one looks, probably looks like it's 20. If you have these too tight, what happens is you can't get the oil out fast enough inside between here. It does two things. One, it sprays up on the cylinder walls, lubricates the cylinder walls, sprays a little oil on the camshaft, and big key thing here is it gets the oil out so it gets nice fresh oil back in to keep it cooler. Keeps it cooler. If you get any debris in there, hopefully it sprays it out before it gets fucking caught up in the connecting rod bearing and chews it up to shit. So you always want to check these. You don't want these like 35,000s or over 30, because then it starts spraying too much oil, and then the oiling ring won't be able to do its job and scrape all the oil off the cylinder wall, and the thing's going to smoke like a champ. So you want to keep these under 30 and around 20 and above. So if you're like 25, 19 to 25, you're doing good. If it was a stock motor, like 10, 12 is good. No, but you're not spinning that thing, what, 3,500, $4,000, maybe 4,200. Ooh, watch out. Now, this thing here is going to be spinning at 7,000 RPM when you're whaling on it. So you need to have these opened up a little bit. So that's it for right now. We got all these on. What I'm going to do after I get done with the video, I'm going to actually flip this over so it's on this back side here. I'm going to go back through. I'm going to torque all these down. I'm going to mark everything. The magic marker here is your best friend at this point. I mark everything. Right now, you can't see it because it's over there, but I marked all the rod, all the mains, what I torqued them to, what the clearance was on the bearing, and I put an X on it so I know I actually torqued it. Same thing with these. When I come back here, I'm going to torque it. I'm going to write down what the clearance is between the connecting rods here. Write down what the bearing clearance is. I have 2 on the rods and 2 on the mains. That's what this is. Back in the old days, everybody was doing 2.5. Everybody was using 2050 oil. I've been cutting it down. My hot rod back here, actually on the rods, is 1.5. It's tight. I run 1030 oil in that. I've been running 1030 oil in everything for the last 10, 12 years. So the old days of running 2050 oil, you don't need that shit. Just tighten the clearances up. You don't want them. That thing is a little too tight, but I took it easy when I first took the motor and I was driving around with it. I really didn't wail on it too soon. Like this thing here, you'll be able to take this thing out and pound the piss out of it right off the bat. This is going to be a great running motor. So there you are. There's all the pistons are in. See, valve release are towards the cam. All these up towards the cam. So that's it for now. I'll come back after I get the I gotta wait for the timing covered gasket to come in, the seal and all that shit. We're gonna talk about sealing the motor up. Small block Chevrolets leak. If you don't seal these things, I've been plagued with oil leaks on these things my whole life. I got it down pretty good. A buddy of mine owns a machine shop, and he's been giving me little tricks. So I'll pass these little tricks on. Don't forget, these pistons, the bottom of the pistons, the way they're designed, they're like freaking coffee cans. Just imagine a coffee can coming down at 7,000 RPM. You got eight of them pushing air down into the oil pan. That air's got to go somewhere, and it finds the simplest little leak anywhere you could possibly figure that would be. Wouldn't leak, it will leak. So you got to be really, really, really clean and unfortunately, you got to use a lot of Permatex to seal these things up. If you weren't pounding the piss out of these things and you're just driving like a push ball, yeah, you're never going to have an oil leak. But if you want to oil on them and you're spinning this thing 7,000 RPM, you're going to have oil leaks. So you got to make sure everything's super sealed up, and we'll go through that, and we're going to seal this one up just like that, and we'll get you through this whole thing. So that's it for now. Like I said, I'm going to buy another camera pretty soon, and so we can do a little bit better videos than this little camera that I got. We'll see you guys later.